This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Hi, hello. It is Josh Bowe, one half of the Pod Maverick podcast team. Also, one of the many editors over at MavsMoneyball.com. As you can tell, I am starting this podcast off, so that means no Kirk Henderson tonight. He is out with a sick baby, and the madman tried to podcast to do post-game work tonight, and we're making sure that he's taking the rightful night off. Joining me today, if you're listening on the audio-only podcast and you cannot see him currently, it is fellow Mavs Moneyball staffer David Trink. David, what's going on?
Nothing much. I'm just kind of like taking in what a fun game that was. That was after four days off. That was a great reintroduction to this team.
Boy, that was probably all I needed for my argument that the NBA should have less games, because if this is what it can look like when both teams have multiple nights off, maybe we should do that more often. I don't know. Athletes,
that's a great point.
Yeah, pro athletes perform better when they're well rested. Who would have thought? So, Mavericks beat the Golden State Warriors 143-133. No, that is not a typo or a misspeak. It was 143-133. The Mavericks hit 21 three-pointers, which is a lot, and they somehow were outshot 6 more times by the Golden State Warriors, who made 27. That's a franchise record for a Mavericks opponent. It's also the most three-pointers made in a loss in NBA history. Previously, any NBA team that I think made at least, 26 three-pointers, I'm trying to look at the numbers, was 11-0. Now, it looks like, if a team had made at least 23 or more three-pointers this season, in a game this season, they were 7-0. What is our friend Bobby Caralla? Yeah, teams were previously 11-0 when making 27 or more three-pointers. Pretty ridiculous game on both ends of the floor. Like the fact that the Warriors made 27 three-pointers at home and lost by 10. They didn't lose by 1 or 1 possession or final second. They lost by 10. This game was pretty much wrapped up in the final minute, although did count as a clutch game. So, David, I just want to hop it to you real quick, just with your kind of immediate thoughts from that wild performance.
So my immediate thoughts, like kind of going back to your point about this is what the NBA could be if every team was well rested before every game. My thought is like, I'm not even sure at this point if that was just bad defense by both teams or the most incredible shot making you've seen in who knows how long. I'm back and forth. I think I'm leaning towards that. With the shot making in this game was just out of this world. And like the first one that comes to mind is like Mavs are up, I think 114-98. There's like a tap out and Draymond's like just immediately, he gets the tap out, immediately passes to the corner to Steph, and Steph has 2 guys on him and he shoots a 3 over Spencer Dinwiddie that initially is called an and one, but like he had 0 feet of space. Spencer Dinwiddie high fives him at the apex. There's like Quentin Grimes, I think, was also standing like right there. So he had no room. He's fading out of bounds and like never a doubt, like down the well. And that was the shot where I was like, okay. I mean, at that point, it was the third quarter, so shots had already been made. But at that point, I was like, for the rest of this game, anything that's going to get put up is going to go in for both teams, because if that's going in, then it's that night.
Yeah, it wasn't just what I mean. There were certainly plenty of wide open catch and shoot threes from some poor defense at times, but also like, do you remember that Klay mid-ranger that off the dribble where he was dribbling to his left, and I feel like he one-handed gathered it like into his shooting motion, and he drained that. Like it was, there was a lot of great shot making in this game. Luka was amazing. I think that's probably where I'm gonna pivot us to, is just how good Luka was tonight. Like this felt like his signature moment of the season so far. When you consider, he hasn't had a lot of moments this season because he started the season off so poorly because of all the lower body injuries he accumulated in the first 2 months of the season. Like this kind of felt like his I'm back kind of game. Not to say that, that Portland win was pretty great, his performance, but that's against Portland. His game against Memphis, maybe that was it, because Memphis is a good team. But a 40-point triple-double through 3 quarters is absurd against a pretty decent Warriors defense, at least when Draymond's on the floor. On the road. And what I really loved about it was kind of like he did everything. Like this wasn't, he didn't just make like 10 3-pointers. Like he made 6 3-pointers, 11, which is a lot for him for sure. Anytime he makes 5 or more in a game, you feel like the Mavericks are probably going to win. But he made 5 mid-rangers. He made 5 points. He made 5 buckets in the paint. He got to the restricted area 3 times, which I know doesn't sound like a lot, but for him this season, it's been a lot. He did stuff he did everything. Like he controlled the game in the pick and roll. He scored in transition. He made spot up jumpers. He got assisted curling to the bucket. Like he did off ball stuff. He did on ball stuff. Like this was everything. And that's kind of what I'm taking away from this game. Like obviously Luka has had meteoric games like this before, but this kind of was one of the first games he's had kind of in this new, not system, but this new role that they're trying to get Luka off the ball. Like we've talked about this before, David. I know you've talked about it before when you've on the playbacks and things that you've written for the site. And I felt like this was like the culmination of it. Like there was some pushback to Luka's role earlier in the season because people were like, well, he's getting out of rhythm. Like he needs the ball more. He needs to touch it more. And my point was always, let's stay the course. Let's let him work this out. And tonight, it's like, this is what could happen. Like he got his numbers. He got his dominant Luka numbers. And I feel like he didn't dominate the ball as much as he normally does.
Yeah, I think that's right. And I think one thing you didn't mention is like his rebounding tonight.
Very good.
Was something. Yeah, there were a couple contested rebounds he got where even my mom, while we were watching the game, she was like, "Oh, what a great rebound!" I was like, "Yeah, that was a great rebound." There was like 2 people around. He went up, high pointed the ball. He did it a little against Oklahoma City too. Like that's one of the things. I think I was thinking about this. Just I don't know if there's a bigger discrepancy for any star between like when he's obviously playing hurt versus when he's obviously healthy. Like it's just like 2 different guys. He does things that he just or he doesn't do things when he's hurt that he does when he's healthy. And it's like for example, like jumping for a rebound like that. Some of the shots he was taking where you just could tell his legs were in it. But yeah, I mean, he was so good tonight. 16 for 23 is far and away it was his best shooting performance of the year. And like and I felt like he left something on the table too, is the thing. Is like this could have easily been 50, 55, 60 points. But he really, and to your point about his role, like in the fourth quarter, they kind of let Kyrie go early. Klay was huge in the fourth quarter. He not necessarily deferred, but he wasn't trying to dominate the ball late. And I think the Mavs really benefited from that because especially on a night when Klay Thompson is hitting shots, when Luka can let other guys shoot the ball, if he needed to get a shot off late, he could have, but that really helps the team when he can let the offense happen away from him, because I mean, they were basically face guarding him at like 60 feet from the basket. So
Yeah, and I felt like he set the tone early, which is another thing that we haven't been able to see too much from him. And again, mainly because of the injuries. But he had, what did he have in the first quarter? He had 15 points in the first quarter. He was 6 of 7 from the floor, 2 of 3 from three. Kind of getting, I mean, he got whatever he wanted. I mean, like I said, he scored from three, mid-range, paint. He was passing well. Like you said, he didn't dominate the ball towards the end. And something I noticed, like, I don't know how much this matters. And again, this is all about, like, I think the goal with this is, like, what the Mavericks are trying to do with him is obviously they want less touches, less possessions, just to keep him fresh, but also just to introduce some variety into their attack, which can make them a little harder to guard. But something I noticed, and this is like a little thing, and I wonder if this adds up or is this just me talking out of my ass. But like, he doesn't bring the ball up exclusively as much as he used to earlier in his Mavericks tenure. And he'll still get the ball after it crosses half court. But like that has like, because sometimes he'll get picked up full court, like when he's going to, like, in the 2020 season, 2021, 2022, when the Mavericks basically had to have him do everything because the roster wasn't good enough for him to do otherwise. I remember him like always having to bring the ball up and defenses sometimes hounding him from full court press sort of. And I noticed sometimes he just kind of gets a break. Like it's almost like he gets a little break, being able to kind of jog up half court to the front court and then kind of take the ball and initiate. And I don't know, that just feels like it has to make a difference in terms of just keeping him fresh, because that has to be the goal. Like they have to keep him fresh.
Yeah, I think that, and just the fact that it's easier to take the ball out of somebody's hands as opposed to preventing someone from getting the ball. Like if somebody else is bringing the ball up, it's much harder to prevent him. Like, and obviously the Mavericks want him to have the ball as much as like he can in his situations. So when you don't have him dribble the ball down the court, like it puts the defense in a spot where they now have to focus somebody off ball to prevent him from getting to the low block, which he got to prevent him from, getting around these off ball screens. It's like, it's so much harder than just sending a second guy to like make him throw the ball across the court when he's dribbling it down. I think you're right. I think it does make a lot of a difference, because that was such a weak point with some of these old teams. It's like, oh my God, Dorian Finney-Smith is dribbling the ball down the court, like turnover.
Right.
Like Reggie Bullock is getting a rebound and dribbling bad, like throws it to the other team. It's such a disadvantage when somebody else cannot initiate the offense. And I think tonight may have been, I'd like to see them do this kind of thing at this, maybe not this level of efficiency, but like in an efficient way again, because of just how crazy this game was. There could have been a lot of one-offs and stuff, but having Luka have this kind of game in this role multiple times is going to be something to look for over the next couple games, I think, because like if they can perfect this version of the team they have right now, which this was as close to perfect offensively as you could have gotten. But if they can, they're going to be so scary if when they get healthy, if they can continue playing good defense, if they can continue putting pressure on the defense by having Luka play off the ball, having Klay hit shots. This team is going to be so much better than previous iterations because of that one thing.
Yeah, hell, Luka struggled by his standards in October and November, and the Mavericks were still like a winning team by the end of November.
Yeah.
Now, like I'm just thinking like the rest of the league. It's like you let the Mavericks escape November with a winning record when Luka did not look like himself, and now he looks like this. Like, what is that? I don't even know what that means for the rest of the league. Like, it's gonna get scary. It feels like the league missed their chance. Like the Mavericks were 5-7, Luka's struggling. Like the team could have got, other teams could have maybe got excited to maybe bury the team a little bit, and they didn't, because again, like you said, the roster is just so much dramatically better than previous iterations in the Luka era. And now time's up. Like he looks back, and now it's like, wow, like they had 6 players in double figures again. I'm looking in our Slack. Jordan Brodas posted this tweet from Mavs PR. This is the 13th time this season they've had 6 or more double-figure scores. They had 13 games of double-figure scores all of last season total, and they're at 13 before Christmas.
It's ridiculous.
It's a different team. I mean, and it just goes to show how good this roster is. And Najee Marshall didn't even play. Could have had 7 if Najee played.
I know. My concern now is like, it seems like they've kind of already had this hero's journey this season where, 5-7, everything looks terrible. Luka gets hurt, he misses some time, but then like they find something within themselves when he's out. And then, other people get sick. You have this weird mix of like players in and out, but they're like learning stuff about the team while this is going on. And now they're coming back and everyone's getting healthy. And like Najee Marshall effectively is healthy. Like he's physically healthy. He's just sick and can't play. And it's like, I don't know. They're kind of peaking. Maybe they're not peaking because they just lost to the Thunder like 4 days ago, but they're playing the best basketball they've played certainly this year so far. And it's just like you hope that this is something they can sustain for the next 3 months and not, this is not a huge peak before like kind of a valley where things get a little rocky again. I don't think that'll be the case because, the roster is just so solid. But and hopefully if they do bottom out a little bit, it'll be in January before like late February, and then they'll pick it back up as the playoffs start. But yeah, it's like you can see the vision right now with this team. It's just a matter of will they be this team in April and May?
Yeah, exactly. And you look at the schedule and it's not bad. They play the Clippers twice, their next 2 games, then Portland, 3 very winnable games. Minnesota on Christmas Day will be a dogfight, even with Minnesota kind of being a weird team this season, but they're playing better lately, a little bit better lately. And then after that's Phoenix, who's struggling with injuries and health, Portland again, then Sacramento. So like I'm looking at the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of their next 7 games. The Minnesota one seems like the only one that seems like a hard game. Like, obviously they can, it's the NBA, right. Things happen, but like their schedule is lined up very nicely for them to continue to go on a run. And it's important, you talk about peaking early, like they have to sustain because like we've said, they got to have a top 3 seed if they want to win an NBA title. We've talked repeatedly about like getting off to better starts in the regular season. They can't be mucking around 500 in February, and they're putting themselves in a position to not do that and to be near the top of the standings in the West. They're 4th right now, but it's very jumbled. They're tied for 3rd. They're a game behind 2nd, and they're 3.5 behind 1st. Like if they can stay in that top 4, maybe 2 to 4 range, that's mission accomplished for me. And I think for the team too, they said that as well. So yeah, like you said, this roster is we're seeing what the front office had in mind when they built this team. And I think we're seeing the philosophy of the Nico Harrison regime since he took over, since the Kyrie trade, basically like the last 24 months of roster building. Like this is kind of what they've been building toward, and every move took them a little bit closer, and you feel like maybe these moves this past summer with Klay, Najee, Quentin Grimes, now they're getting closer and closer. We're 18 minutes in. We're going to pause for a quick ad break. For those of you that are watching live or watching on our YouTube channel, we're just going to momentarily pause and then get right back into the podcast. For those of you listening to our audio only streams, or maybe you're listening or watching on YouTube the next day after, we're going to insert an ad break right here. So listen to some ads, helps the show tremendously. And then I know Kirk is the one who does our ad read for our show sponsor, Body Spec. I do not have his notes in front of me, so I'm not going to be able to do the best live ad read on our sponsor, Body Spec. So apologies to our sponsor. Thank you for giving us money. We really appreciate it. But I will just say, Body Spec, it's our first sponsor. And Kirk was very adamant, and myself included, that we did not want our first sponsor to be gambling related. Sorry, David. I know that you are one of our resident degenerates on that front, but I'm not a big gambler, so I just didn't want that to be our first live show sponsor. So Body Spec stepped in. They are a great company that does body scans called a DEXA scan. You go in, very quick and easy. Took me about 10 minutes. They give you a scan. They give you all these great numbers on your body to help you with your health. They give you body fat percentage, different types of fat percentage, your lean muscle mass, all this stuff that can help get you healthy or make the right steps and game plan. I am not a workout warrior as I am older, but I am trying to eat healthier and just be a little bit more active. And when I got my scan and got the results, it was very nice to see like what direction I need to go in terms of what I need to do to continue to be healthier. So thank you, Body Spec. If you, I don't know if it's in the show notes or not, but if there's a Pod Maverick code somewhere out there in the ether where you can get a good deal on your first Body Spec scan, I will make sure to include that in the YouTube show notes if Kirk hasn't included it already. So again, thank you to Body Spec, and we'll talk more about them when Kirk's back on the podcast. But we both had our scans, and it was really pain-free for me. It was really easy. So that's my spiel for Body Spec. Thank you for being a sponsor of the show. We will take an audio ad break. We will be right back.
If you're like me, you're looking for an edge for sports betting. So when I heard Masterclass had a new class on beating the odds, taught by the pros who have made millions, I had to check it out. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best to become your best. Masterclass is the only streaming platform where you can learn and grow with over 200 of the world's best. For just $10 a month, an annual membership with Masterclass gets you unlimited access to every instructor. And you can access Masterclass on your phone, computer, smart TV, or even in audio mode. Novice bettors are at a huge disadvantage, with most losing early and fast. Before, the knowledge needed to level up was hard to come by. Now there's Masterclass, and the classes really make a difference. 88% of members feel that Masterclass has made a positive impact on their lives. I use it, and you should too. Plus, every new membership comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee. So don't wait another moment to start your learning journey with Masterclass. And Masterclass always has great offers during the holidays, sometimes up to as much as 50% off. Head over to masterclass.com/Blue Wire for their current offer. That's up to 50% off at masterclass.com/Blue Wire. That's masterclass.com/Blue Wire. And remember, all sports betting involves risk, and you're responsible for complying with all sports betting laws in your jurisdiction.
Okay, we are back. Second half of the podcast. Mavericks again beat the Golden State Warriors 143-133 in a wild shootout game. David, we talked about Luka. We talked about kind of the whole team-wide performance, what the roster looks like, how it's kind of gelling into its somewhat final form that we think. Some stuff I wanted to hit on before we wrap it up with the second half of the podcast. I mean, we haven't talked about Klay. Season high, 29 points, made 7 of 11 from 3. He was awesome. Also 4 assists. Like his passing was really good tonight. I think that's the most underrated thing of his game has been his passing. Mm-hmm. He's been passing well all season, even when he hasn't been shooting well. So I really like Klay's game. What'd you like?
I loved Klay's game. I mean, this was like the perfect game that I'm just going to show people when they're like, oh, if Klay shoots 2 for 13 next game, I'm like, yeah, I've gotten Pajimski, I've gotten Klay, I've gotten Klay many times. But like, this is exactly why I've just been, every time I talk about Klay, I'm like, I don't care if he misses shots. I only care that he takes them. And if he plays 15 minutes, if he plays 25 minutes, if he plays 35 minutes, it doesn't matter to me, because this is the exact kind of game that he can give you at any point. Like 9 for 14 from the floor, had a couple pull-ups, like 7 for 11 from 3, like you said. His passing was excellent. He had that like dump off to Gafford for that huge dunk. I think it was in the fourth quarter. He had 2 steals and a block. Like he's the kind of guy that you don't need, especially for the contract that they signed him to. You don't need him to be 18 points every single night. You just need him to be good enough. And like his individual defense also. He locked up Steph a couple times. Like he was moving his feet. But you don't need him 18 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists every night. You just need him to have one of these kinds of games every once in a while to remind you that when it comes time to buckle down and get it done in the playoffs, he is capable of it. And this is the exact game that showed me that I'm not like crazy for thinking that Klay Thompson has still been a huge part of this team despite his shooting struggles. I mean, he had the highest plus minus on the team. I know plus minus isn't the best stat, but it just shows you that like this team is a lot better when he is on the floor. His gravity, when he's making shots, it's even like it's magnified to a significant degree. And when he's defending like he did tonight and getting steals and, you know, actively giving the Mavericks the ball back, it's incredible for this team.
Yeah, the third straight game of at least 19 or more points, 20 against the Raptors, 19 against the Thunder, 29 tonight against the Warriors. He's made 12 three-pointers combined in his last 2 games. He's made at least 3 in the last 4. Yeah, definitely, you know, 40%. He's well above 40% from 3 for the month of December. Yeah, he looks great. And, you know, I wanted to kind of use this Klay performance as a jumping off point because I know some of the Mavericks fan base has been a little restless with Klay. And I'm definitely seeing Klay tossed into some fake trades. And I'll be honest, like, you know, I'm not going to like talk down. The last thing I want to do is talk down to fans or anything like that. But I just can't. I will just respectfully disagree with the Klay and the trade machine posts. I can't get there yet. First off, it's way too early. We're not even to Christmas. Like I got to get to like All-Star break, you know, maybe get a little closer to February before I really sound the alarm, especially with veteran shooters like this. And Klay is a streaky guy. He's going to go through stretches, and he's done that basically his whole career. He'll go a week where it doesn't look like he can, he can hit water if he fell out of a boat, and then he, looks like his all NBA self for another week. So that's just kind of how shooters go. We've seen that with Tim Hardaway Jr. Obviously, Klay is another level than that, but sorry not to give Mavs fans PTSD by uttering his name. But yeah, because the thing to me is, he's not shooting as well as you'd probably hope with the quality of the looks he's getting. But here's the thing. They've been winning his minutes all season. His numbers, the numbers with Klay on the floor have been very good, where you look at all these different lineup combinations. The starting lineup with Klay and Lively in it is very, very good. They are winning. Not only are they winning those minutes and those possessions, they are winning them considerably, like handedly. And I think a big reason is the gravity makes so much sense. And look, when you got Luka and Kyrie and you're starting 2 non-shooters in PJ and Derek Lively, obviously PJ is shooting much better than he did when he got traded over to the Mavericks. But still, if you wanted to classify him as a shooter or a non-shooter, teams will guard him like he's not a shooter and sag off of him. Obviously, if he can keep making if he can keep making threes, maybe that changes. But I just don't think you can start if you put in another player that doesn't have the same gravity that Klay has, that doesn't demand the same attention that Klay has. I don't know if you can start Lively and PJ together and the offense look as great as it does. Like if you put in Najee, even if you put in Quentin Grimes, who's a good shooter and a good shooter at volume, they just don't get guarded like Klay does. Like Klay has that respect of defenses, and he's always going to have it. And that just opens up so much. It shows in his passing. Like he's been passing well. He's been getting good passing opportunities. His numbers have been really good. And I just think that's crucial. I think on paper, it's not the wildest idea to look at Klay and if you can make an upgrade to the roster. But, the optics wise of what they did to sign him this summer and the recruiting effort to then trade him less than a season in would be weird.
Right.
And then on the court, it's working. The Mavericks are 17-9 and they're winning his minutes. So I just don't see the cause for the alarm. And I'm glad he's finally put some good on paper box score results to kind of back that up.
Yeah, I mean, we both watch, basically every game. I feel like I haven't watched a game this year, and I'm like, Klay Thompson is losing us this game. Maybe one time. Maybe there's been one game where he shot I think maybe there's one game I'm thinking of. I don't know who it was against, but he shot pretty poorly. I was like, okay, this is bad. But 99% of the time when he's out there, if he misses, I'm not like, oh my God, get him out of the game. I'm like, keep shooting. That's exactly what we need you to do. I don't know. It's kind of a thing of, box score watching versus game watching. That's how that's the debate about whether or not to trade him or bench him or whatever. That's kind of what it feels like to me, is like, if you're not watching all of the games, which, you know, who can watch every single Mavs game, but like I try to, and I have pretty much this year. And it just feels like like you said, it feels like the Mavericks are better with him on the floor than when he's on the bench. And so like, and also the other thing that you kind of touched on about recruiting him, signing him, he's in the first year of a 3-year deal. Like, it feels kind of pointless to trade him. You know, what would that be? June to like February? That would be like 8 months after you sign him. It's like, why? It's especially with the team playing how they are, especially with how deep this team is. Like, and this kind of, for me, my stance on the trade deadline as it approaches 2 months away or 3 months away, whatever it is, like, I feel like the Mavericks shouldn't make a trade if they don't have to. There is something to be said for, you have a group that enjoys playing with each other. I mean, Najee Marshall's tweeting after every game, "I wish I was out there," because he enjoys playing with them so much. And there's something to, like, maybe they do make an upgrade on some margin, whether that's trading Daniel Gafford or trading Maxi Kleber, or, you know, whoever it is, whatever bench player it is that they would be trading. There's something to be said there for, like, would the new guy fit with this team better than the old guy did? Because it seems like everyone's fitting pretty perfectly with each other, like on and off the court. At least that's what it looks like from an outsider's perspective. So the thing about my stance on trading right now is, like, you shouldn't break up a group that has this chemistry and this talent. Like, that's really, really hard to find.
No, yeah, I agree. And I want to say, man, what was that? You made a good point. I wanted to follow up with it, and I was looking at it. Oh yeah, you're talking about the games that Klay, like, what poor games has he lost them with his shooting? Funny enough, his worst games have all come in losses. I mean, no, sorry, his worst games have all come in wins.
Yeah, that's what I assumed. I was like, I can't remember a time where he was like 0 for 10 and the Mavs lost.
His 0.23-minute game win against Denver, 1 of 5 a win against Memphis. He was 1 of 11 and a win against Oklahoma City. The last time he had a bad shooting game and the Mavericks lost was the 4-game losing stretch. They lost to Denver and they lost to Phoenix, and he was very bad. He was 2 of 13 combined from 3 in those 2 games. But since then, he's shot the ball pretty well in most of their losses, and his worst shooting performances since then have all come in wins, which is kind of funny enough. So yeah, like, they're making do. And yeah, like I said, like, they're 17, not like, they started the season 5-7. If they were still 2 games under 500 now, okay, like, you can maybe talk me into it, but I just don't see it right now. It's working, and it's not working in spite of him. Like, he is contributing to this. I know, like we said, he's 100%. Not making shots consistently, but yeah, his gravity is there. If you watch the things that they're able to open up when he's on the floor, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. Trying to think of some other big storylines from this game. I mean, the Mavericks defense was, I don't know how much you want to talk about the Mavericks defense, because their defensive philosophy, and I touched on this in the recap, they give up. They don't want to give up the rim, and they don't want to give up the paint, and they will sacrifice some open threes to make sure a team does not score consistently in the paint, because I think they're making the gamble that the best shot in basketball is a layup or a dunk. If we take away that, you know, teams are relying on jump shots. Jump shots are more variable than a layup or a dunk. You know, the best 3-point shooters make 45% of their threes, compared to the best paint scorers make, 75% of their 2-pointers. So they're just calculating that they would, kind of suffocate the best and easiest shot in basketball and then win on jump shot variance, which isn't a bad game. I mean, they made the finals. They're 17-9, riding that defensive philosophy. I don't really disagree with it. But when you come against teams like the Warriors, who don't really get to the rim that much and love to shoot threes, this can happen. And the Warriors got hot, and the Mavericks gave up some threes, but their defense kind of will give up some threes. So I'm trying to couch like how much of this game was their defensive philosophy just getting pushed to the limits by a hot shooting team, and how much of it was stuff they can control better in terms of getting out to shooters. Do you have a hard opinion on that? Because I'm still thinking it through in my head.
I don't have a hard opinion on it. My only take on the openness of shots that Golden State was able to get tonight is there. I mean, there were some of them where the pass to the shot, like the assist for the shot, would come from like 8 feet away. It would be like a wing to corner pass, and like they just wouldn't put a hand up. And I'm like, okay, that's something you can control. You're standing right there. Just, get half a step towards the shooter in the corner. That's like the only thing. Is there were some like effort kind of things that allowed the Warriors to make, I don't know, it had to have been like maybe like 5 or 6 more shots, but like overall, I think you're right. Like you win more games than you lose with that philosophy, especially with the number of teams that can. I mean, the Celtics, obviously, that's why the Mavericks lost the NBA Finals, because of that. But there just aren't that many teams that are going to shoot you out of the gym like that on a consistent basis.
Right. And I thought that was a good comment from Brian Roby, who mentioned, our own CBA Mavs tweeted out the Warriors shot 45% on twos. Mavericks shot 67% on twos. Like that makes a difference. The Warriors shot 10 of 24 in the paint outside the restricted area. They shot 12 of 20 in the restricted area. Those are both under league average numbers. Like, yeah, you can get away with it. Well, I mean, the Mavericks have to have one of their own great offensive nights too to get away with it. I mean, if the Mavericks are average on offense tonight, they lose this game by like 25 points. So, take that what you will. But I think they're just going to run into games like this against teams that like to shoot threes, and I don't know if it's necessarily that big a cause for concern.
Maybe, I mean, eventually it's going to come down to, like, if they do make it back to the NBA Finals, they're going to run into the same Celtics team most likely, and I think that's really the only situation. Maybe the Thunder. I mean, the Thunder have some decent, like, if Shea's making threes, then it becomes an issue. Shea and, like, I don't know, Chet's health come playoff time, but the guys that are, borderline, like they could go either way depending on the game on the Thunder. It might come back versus one of those two, or it will come back versus one of those two teams in the playoffs. But really, against any other team, I don't think this issue is going to bite them in the butt.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm with you there. And we saw against Boston, I actually don't think they lost that series on defense against Boston. Their offense was just so bad. And then the question, it's going to be, can they repeat that and have a better offensive performance if they manage to get back there? And then with OKC, the question is, they were able to get through that because they had such a massive size advantage against OKC last playoffs. We have not seen them play against the Isaiah Hartenstein, Chet front court since both of them have been injured. And we already saw in that last game, just with Hardenstein back, makes a world of difference. So I will love to see how the Mavericks can solve that problem against OKC when they play against the full healthy front line of the Thunder, because the Thunder will finally start like a big lineup with a real center and a real 4-man. So that'll be interesting to see, but that's down the road. And otherwise, I feel like we've hit the points I wanted to hit for this game. Are there any other lasting points you wanted to hit on? Kyrie had like the quietest 21-point, 8-assist game I've ever seen. Yeah. Klay was great. We talked about that. PJ, great to see PJ back. Scored on that post up first possession of the game. Yeah. Just like he didn't skip a beat. Defensively, he wasn't as great as he normally is, but that's okay. But yeah, Grimes had a solid game off the bench, solid enough. Gafford and Lively doing what they do for the most part, combined for 18 points on 9 of 11 shooting. I don't know, any other takeaways from this game, because otherwise I think we could wrap it up.
My last point would just be about PJ. Like, I mean, the Mavs are 16-4 when he plays now, I believe, because they're 1-5 without him.
Is PJ Washington the league MVP? I jokingly tweeted.
That's the question. I mean, like, what do you think it is about? Like, what is because they have had Najee Marshall in the lineup without him. They've have other guys fill his role, but it like, can you put a finger on just what it is about PJ that makes the world of difference to this team?
I mean, if you look at the Mavericks roster, he is the only legitimate modern 4-man on the roster. I don't think Najee is a 4, even though he's got the size, kind of has the size for it. Maxey, if this was the 2022 playoffs, maybe, but like obviously he can't stay on the floor and his body's kind of betraying him. Then otherwise, you know, their backup big is a center. You know, they don't. Dwight Powell's a center. Grimes is a perimeter player. You know, they're trying to squeeze some stuff out of Omax Prosper, who had another solid enough showing, like actually doing some stuff in his minutes. Made a corner 3, had 3 rebounds, 2 assists. Like they just don't have anyone else like PJ on the roster. He's probably like he's either the most athletic player on the roster or the second most behind Derek Lively in terms of bounciness. Like every contender has a power forward like PJ in terms of like that defensive athletic jump out of the gym badass. And he's the only one they have on the roster. Like they just don't have anyone else that can replicate what he can do. Najee is not nearly as above the rim player. Neither is Maxey. And then everyone else are basically, you know, 1s, 2s, and 3s or 5s in terms of their position. So I think it's just that he's a rarity on the roster. And like his defensive versatility. I mean, it's been unmatched. I mean, he is to me an all defense player. I don't know if he's first team. I don't know if he's second team, but he's on one of those teams if he keeps this up. And yeah, that's the only thing I can think of. And like, if we're talking about stuff that we can't quantify in the box score, he definitely brings like an edge to the team that I don't think anyone else on the roster brings in terms of a physicality and a mentality that he brings every night.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's right. I think that's kind of where I've landed, is just like he's kind of this unique being on the team that just they can't replicate in any other way. Like you can get Najee Marshall's minutes from like a combination of Omax, PJ, kind of
Grimes and Dinwiddie.
Sometimes. Yeah. And it's just like PJ, I think his size is like really big. Like you were saying, like they just don't have a dude that big and that athletic and can put the ball on the floor and move on defense like that outside of him. And it really just, it's tough when he doesn't play because they can't do the same things defensively that they want to do. And on offense, it kind of stalls sometimes because they don't like, if that's, I don't know if that's Maxey or if that's Omax or whoever instead of PJ on certain plays, it just doesn't work.
Yeah.
So
and like,
I think that's, yeah.
Yep. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just gonna say, I think that's where I've landed. He's kind of like an enigma on this team. It's just he is like one of one in terms of the things that they ask him to do.
Yeah, I mean, you think about like if Lively's not got it, they plug in Daniel Gafford, who, you know, I don't think he's as good a player as Lively, but fills that archetype. Like he could, like it doesn't change how the Mavericks want to do things when Gafford's in there compared to Lively. If Klay's not in there, obviously it's not the same. It's a step down, but you put in Grimes, who's another off-ball volume shooter. You know, like if Dinwiddie or, you know, interchangeably Dinwiddie or Najee, you know, a bigger player that can handle the ball a little bit off the bench, like those, like if one of them is out, the other one can kind of step in. But like you said, if there's no PJ, like Maxey's not doing the thing, you know, Maxey can't do the things PJ can do. Najee can't do it. Lively, Gafford, you know, Luka, Grimes, like it's just, they just don't have someone that can slot in and do and fill that role. So yeah, I just think that's kind of how it is. And I can definitely see, if we're talking trades, you know, instead of trading Klay, I could see them trying to find, obviously you're probably not going to be able to find another PJ Washington, but just trying to find another athletic forward that they can bring off the bench so that it doesn't feel like when PJ's out or off the floor that they're just wandering. And maybe they can help ease that up. I don't know who that player is. Don't ask me. I'm very bad at fake trades, but I would imagine that's their goal, is to find a backup four that's got some bounce. If they don't think they can lean on Omax to make a second, you know, another jump here.
He's looked decent the last couple games. I don't know if I trust him to do that for, like a couple months, but
he's doing everything that they can expect him to do right now. Like he's giving them everything he can.
I think just to put a bow on that, on the PJ Washington thing, I think your point about the way they play is just different with and without him. Like I think it's more without him. It's more of like the old Mavericks, like 5 out, not much off ball movement kind of thing, especially when Maxi's on the floor. And then with him, it's like this current new version of the Mavericks that's super athletic, cuts, lobs, drives, everything, all of those things. So
yeah, for sure. With you, they definitely lose an athletic edge when he's not on the floor, especially now that they don't have Derrick Jones Jr., which kind of doubles down on that. So yeah. Well, I think that's about it for me. I don't know about you, but that was a good win. Thanks for coming on the show, David. Again, thanks for pitch hitting for Kirk. We really appreciate it. He really needed the night off, so I'm glad he was able to get that. So yeah, I think that's going to do it for Pod Maverick. No post-game live show. I am not as good at Kirk as that, and I don't have the stamina that Kirk has to do that. So I apologize if anyone wanted to talk about this game even more. Hopefully when Kirk comes back for the next game, we'll be able to crank that up. But yeah, another long layoff. Mavericks don't play again until Thursday against the Clippers at home. So Mavericks get to take a plane ride back to Dallas, hang out for a couple nights, and maybe we get to see them drop another 140 points if they get 3 more nights off. So we'll see. For Pod Maverick, this is Josh Bowe. David, again, pleasure as always. Thanks for joining in, and we appreciate being able to talk with us tonight.
Yep, thanks for having me.
Yep, that'll do it for us. Thanks everyone for watching. Want to shout out the 2 super fans that left generous tips. Dodang, $5. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you. And then appear nowhere. Appear now, appear later. $4.99 tip. Thank you guys. Really appreciate the support. So again, that'll do it for Pod Maverick after dark. We will talk to you guys again Thursday after the Clippers game. You guys stay safe, and we'll see you then.
Drinking and driving is a decision that could change your whole world. Things will never be the same if you ever get a DUI. Because legal fees and time in court are just the beginning. Getting into a crash is another way that your world can be turned upside down. Your vehicle may not be the only thing that gets damaged in that crash. You can face a life-altering injury or even death. But you're not the only one that can face those consequences. Your decision to drink and drive can permanently impact not just your world, but someone else's world as well. Whether you injure them or leave their loved ones grieving. The next time you're out drinking, call a rideshare, a taxi, a sober friend, or a designated sober driver. The only decision that will change your world for the better is the decision to call for a sober ride. Drive sober or get pulled over. Paid for by NHTSA.